Some people believe there are only two genders. Linguists, however, classify neuter as a third gender. The German language has three genders, masculine, feminine and neuter, as was the case in the original Proto-Indo-European cluster of languages. Biologically, there are two genders, but some people use gender in a broader sense to encompass self-identification. As humans, we can identify however we wish. There are no set rules. We are free to invent new names or to believe we have characteristics, as some actually do, of either biological gender. Some prefer not to identify as male or female because their feelings are typical of neither. There are many people born with their gender indeterminate, either biologically and physically intersex, or their personal gender differs from their physical gender. Sexual identification doesn't necessarily correlate with chromosomal gender. And even chromosomal gender is not always female, XX, or male, XY. There are other variants. Transsexual identification is familiar to everyone, but transsexual people generally eventually identify in a binary way as one of two genders. In the plant and animal worlds, gender is fluid. Some creatures reproduce asexually and so have no gender. Some change gender according to their environment, or naturally as they mature. Some have both male and female organs, so have two genders. Most people today recognize that there is more to social gender than genes, physical appearance and reproductive capacity, and that we are free to identify as neither masculine nor feminine. Yes, and some of them get really angry about it on both sides. The undeniable fact is reproductively it takes a fertile female and a fertile male to make a baby. That's certainly an important fact, but for much of our daily lives it's a so what? We seem to hang way too much about people's identities off whether they are in principle more like a particular side of a baby making. It's not even true. Even people with a strictly binary attitude think postmenopausal women are women. One of the nonsenses that upsets me personally is when people try and circumlocute the debate by talking about people who menstruate. Lots of women don't menstruate and they need to start talking about people have menstruated, or at least whose bodies are or have ever been more like someone who would at some point in their life menstruate. If you don't, we're in the ridiculous situation of people who believe themselves to be feminists demeaning women who don't menstruate and worse, reducing womanhood to capacity to make babies. Surely, if feminism should fight for anything, it should in a lot of things top of the agenda as, women should not be regarded as baby factories. But using terms like, people who menstruate, to define womanhood does exactly that. People who menstruate, is perfect own goal for feminism. Please. Stop. We all have to recognize the binary nature of reproduction. It's a fact, end of. I should accept its social significance and significance to some people in their lives. But do we really need to care about it so much? Get so excited and just plain angry about it? From a philosophical point of view, it's fascinating. People want the world to be simple and put things and people into rigidly defined boxes and get really upset when the world refuses to conform to their boxes. But if we look closely enough at anything, it doesn't fit the boxes. The only thing that's special about gender is it's got so much profile in society that reality's failure to neatly fit the boxes and if and how we deal with it has become a battleground. I think we should all regard gender as only important in part of our lives and interactions, chill out and try as far as we can to let people lead the lives they want to lead. Are there two genders? Broadly, yes, there are, but like all categorizations, it's not as simple as you want it to be. That's even more visible in biology, where even things like species doesn't have a very hard definition. If you're looking for someone with whom you want to have a baby, then the man-woman distinction doesn't entirely work anyway, because there are infertile people, so even at its primary application it doesn't entirely work, and the rest of the time, why is that so important to you? Why do people refuse to believe that there are not just two genders, is a much better question. First of all, if people say that they are not feeling male or female but something else completely, why would you disbelieve that? If people say that some days they feel male and other days they feel female, why would you disbelieve that? Can't you see that this is the exact same reasoning as the millions of questions here on Quora about homo and bisexuality? I am not gay, therefore nobody is. Or, I have not ever met someone like that, therefore it does not really exist. Or, my biology lessons in high school didn't cover that, therefore it is nonsense. The fact that you do not understand something does not mean that it is not true. I couldn't explain the Big Bang if my life depended on it, but I do believe scientists who say that the Big Bang is really a thing, and they have so much proof now that it's 98% sure that it actually happened. Does the truthfulness of that depend on me understanding it? Nope, it does not. Neither does being non-binary. Secondly, there are many ways in which sex is not limited to two. There are, for instance, 1 in 1,500 people who are born intersex, born with sexual characteristics of both sexes. There are, although they are rare, other genetic variations on the XX and XY. As said, they may be rare, but they still exist. That alone disproves your statement. Thirdly, there is a difference between sex and gender. Sex is what your body tells you, gender takes place in the brain. And just as there are people who are born with a certain body but brains who tell them they are the exact opposite, there are people who are born with a certain body but a brain that tells them that body does not fit them. And no, that does not mean it is a mental disorder, which means that it is taught, but a brain disorder, the way the brain is wired.